Let me ask you something, and I need you to be honest with yourself right now. When was the last time you felt like you were this close to a breakthrough and then nothing happened? Like you did everything right. You prayed, you worked, you waited, and still, silence. Still, the same walls. Still, the same version of your life you've been trying to escape for months, maybe years, and somewhere deep in your chest, a quiet voice starts whispering something dangerous. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe God forgot about me. I want you to stop right there, because what I'm about to show you in the next few minutes might be the most uncomfortable truth you've ever heard, and the most freeing one. The reason your blessings keep getting delayed isn't bad luck. It's not your past. It's not even your circumstances. It's one habit, one pattern. So subtle, so deeply wired into your daily life, that most people carry it to their graves without ever naming it. And that habit is the addiction to waiting to feel ready. Stay with me here, because this is going to go deeper than you think. There's a man, let's call him Marcus. Real person, real story, name changed. Marcus was 32 years old, sitting in a studio apartment in Detroit, talented beyond measure. The kind of guy who could walk into a room and shift the energy. He had a business idea he'd been carrying for 4 years. 4 years. He had notebooks full of plans, YouTube tabs full of tutorials, phone full of mentors he'd never actually called, and every single day, Marcus would wake up and say the same thing to himself. I'm not ready yet. I need to learn more. I need to save more. I need to be more. What Marcus didn't realize, what nobody told him, is that not ready wasn't humility, it was fear wearing a spiritual costume. Here's the thing about waiting to feel ready. It feels responsible, it feels wise, it feels like you're being careful, being strategic, honoring the process. But there's a psychological term for what's actually happening in your brain during that period. It's called preparatory avoidance. And researchers at Stanford found that people who engage in excessive preparation rituals before taking action are statistically less likely to ever begin than people who jump in with 60% readiness. Read that again, 60% readiness. That's all it takes. But you've been sitting at 49, waiting to hit 100 that will never come. Why? Because the brain is wired for survival, not success. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a lion chasing you and a business launch. To your biology, both feel like death. And so it does what it was designed to do. It stalls. It finds reasons. It manufactures doubt. And here's where it gets spiritual, because this is where most people miss it. God, the universe, source, whatever language you use, operates on a principle that most self-help books are too afraid to say plainly. Blessings are not deposited into comfortable people. They're deposited into moving ones. Think about every major story of transformation you've ever read. Moses didn't get the burning bush on a day he felt confident. He was hiding in the desert, running from his own identity. Abraham didn't feel ready to leave his homeland. David didn't feel ready to face Goliath. Joseph certainly didn't feel ready for prison, but prison was the corridor to the palace. The pattern isn't preparation leading to action. The pattern is obedience through discomfort leading to transformation. So when you sit there and say, I'll start when I'm ready, you're not being faithful to the process. You're negotiating with your fear. And the longer the negotiation goes on, the more expensive the deal gets. Let me give you a framework. I call it the 3 stages of the waiting trap. Because it doesn't hit you all at once, it's gradual. And by the time you recognize it, you're already deep in it. Stage 1 is called preparation without movement. This is the honeymoon phase of avoidance. You feel productive. You're reading books, watching videos, making plans. You feel like you're building towards something. But weeks become months, and the external reality hasn't changed at all. This is where most people live permanently, because it feels like progress. It isn't. It's motion disguised as movement. Stage 2 is called comparison paralysis. This is where it gets painful. You start watching other people win, people less qualified than you, people who started after you, and instead of being inspired, you feel something you're ashamed to admit: resentment. You start questioning the fairness of it all. You feel overlooked, undervalued, forgotten. You wonder what they have that you don't. What they have is simple. They moved before they were ready, and the universe rewarded the movement. Stage 3 is called identity collapse. This is the most dangerous one. This is where the habit stops being about your goal and starts being about who you are. You stop saying, I haven't started yet, and you start saying, I'm just not the type of person who succeeds. You rewrite your identity around your inaction. And once that story sets in, it calcifies. It becomes the lens through which you see every opportunity, every relationship, every sign from God. This is where Marcus was, sitting in that apartment, not just waiting to start a business, but waiting to be a different person before he allowed himself to begin. Now here's the part I need you to sit with, really sit with. The habit of waiting to feel ready is at its core a trust issue, not a trust issue with yourself, a trust issue with God. Because when you strip everything away, the psychology, the neuroscience, the philosophy, what's really happening when you refuse to move is this. You don't believe that the power supporting you is strong enough to cover your gaps. You think your readiness is the qualifying factor, that you have to arrive at the starting line already complete, already polished, already capable. But that's not how the supernatural works. The miracle doesn't come before the step, it comes after it. The Red Sea didn't part until Moses' staff hit the water. The oil didn't multiply until the widow started pouring. The bread didn't multiply until it was broken and given away. Your breakthrough is waiting on the other side of an action you're currently too afraid to take. So let me give you something practical. Because I'm not interested in you feeling emotional for 10 minutes and then going back to the same patterns. I want your life to actually change. Here's what I call the 60% rule in real-life application. First, name the one thing you've been preparing for longer than 3 months without a single external action. Not journaling about it, not talking about it. An actual external action that someone else could observe. If you can't name one, that thing is your trap. Second, set a 24-hour launch window. Not a plan to launch, an actual launch. Send the email, post the video, make the call, register the business. Whatever version of beginning looks like for you, it has to happen in the next 24 hours. Not because 24 hours is magic, because momentum is. And the only way to create momentum is to stop treating your start like a sacred event that requires perfect conditions. Third, replace the phrase "I'm not ready" with "I'll figure it out as I go." This sounds small. It's not. Language shapes belief. Belief shapes action. Action shapes destiny. The people who built the things you admire didn't have a map. They had a direction and a decision. I want to come back to Marcus for a moment, because this story doesn't end in the apartment. After 4 years of notebooks and tutorials and saved Instagram posts, Marcus called a mentor he'd been too intimidated to reach out to. Not because he felt ready, because his sister asked him one question that broke something open in him. She said, "What exactly are you waiting for?" And he couldn't answer. He sat there, he opened his mouth, and nothing came out. Because the truth was, he wasn't waiting for a skill or a sign. He was waiting for a feeling that was never coming. So he called the mentor, launched a basic version of his idea with resources he already had. It wasn't perfect. The first 3 months were humbling. But by month 8, he had his first 5-figure revenue month. Not because he finally became ready, because he finally moved. And movement, real movement, faith-fueled and fear-filled at the same time, is what activates the invisible forces that your stillness has been blocking. There's a quote I've carried with me for years. It's from St. Augustine, and it hits differently every time I read it. Our heart is restless until it rests in thee. And I think about that in the context of purpose. Your soul knows what it's supposed to build. It knows what it's supposed to say, create, launch, become. And every day that you delay it, every day that you sit in the comfort of preparation without execution, your spirit is restless. That anxiety you feel isn't random. That low-grade frustration, that sense that something is off even when nothing is visibly wrong, that's not stress. That's the gap between who you are and who you were made to be. And the only way to close that gap isn't more information. It isn't more planning. It isn't another vision board or another journal entry about what you deserve. It's a decision, followed by a step, followed by another step. So here's where I leave you. You've been watching this video for a reason. I don't believe in accidents, and I don't think you do either. Something in you needed to hear this today. Something in you recognized itself in Marcus's story, or in those 3 stages, or in that question your sister, or your gut, or God has been asking you. What are you waiting for? The habit of waiting to feel ready has cost you time you can't buy back. It's cost you connections that could have changed everything. It's cost you the compounded interest of years of work you haven't done yet. But here's the grace in all of this, and this is the part I want you to carry. It's not too late. It is never too late to begin. But it does require you to make peace with imperfection, to move with 49% readiness and trust that the remaining 51 will show up as you go, to believe, truly believe, that you are not the bottleneck, your fear is. The blessings aren't being withheld. They're being held in a corridor that only opens from your side. And the door handle is a decision. If this hit different for you, if something in this video cracked something open, don't let it close again. Share this with someone who's been living in the preparation stage too long. Leave a comment below telling me one thing you've been waiting to start. I read every single one. And if you want to go deeper, the next video breaks down exactly how to rewire your identity so that action becomes natural, not forced. It's right there, and I think you're ready.